Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, 4 nerds by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
I'm Ted.
And today we want to do Game Master Tips, what makes a good story.
Before we get in that though, jump down to the description below, sign up for the Nerdarchy newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips delivered straight to your inbox, as well as learn how to game with us.
So, what makes a good story? So, I actually hate the word good in many contexts because
it's so subjective.
Yes, what does good equal?
So, what's going to be compelling? What's going to make your players happy? We've been GMing for a long time. You were a GM much longer than I've been. But when
I think Ted is just saying I'm old.
No, you're only a couple years older than I am. So, but when you sit down to write either a campaign or your campaign arc, what are the things that you feel like are a must?
So the first thing you need is you need a hook.
Okay.
Right. You need a good hook to reel them in to get the game going. Again, like what are we always putting together? We're putting together plot hooks. Well, you need good ones that capture the attention of your players. And ones that they're not going to ignore. Like, okay, so they arrive home at their village and they see it's on fire. Well, if they don't care about their village and they're afraid of fire, it might not be a good hook because they may be like, oh, I'm not going here. It's on fire and I hate fire.
I'm going to go that way.
But, if they have strong ties to the village and they have family and friends there, that hook should make them, make their characters instantly feel anxiety and be nervous and be scared and fearful for what's going on in that town. Is someone they know, are they in trouble? Are they injured or worse?
Right.
It should draw them in.
Okay.
So, the first element to creating a good compelling story is a solid hook. And the best hooks usually involve your actual player characters at the table. Because we go back to what's good and the subjectiveness of it. To try and eliminate that and insulate against it, if you pick things that they've told you or from their backstories or things that their characters have expressed concern about, already you've biased the hook towards them.
Right.
The more of your players you can basically sink that hook in with one shot, the better.
Okay, let's break down our first session. Now, for my game, I only had 3 players at the table for my first session. It was you, Mark, and Ryan. And Ryan and Mark literally stumbled upon something that was happening, and it was linked to my overarching plot as well as to your backstory. I didn't have enough to work with to really make everything happen for all 3 characters, but there were people being kidnapped and children being kidnapped, which I thought was one of those things that definitely linked to, well, people are getting kidnapped, the heroes need to step up and save people. That's what heroes do. Now with your game, we had 7, 8 players at the table?
Yeah, we had like 7 players.
So you had several of the players being hired on to go investigate. This. Well, what did you do? Well, what did you refer to it as?
The phenomenon.
The phenomenon. So myself, I was hired for.
You actually worked for the library that
right.
It was bounding the expedition.
So then Pete and Todd were sent there as guards.
Yes.
Alan and Ryan
fell through it. That leaves the Gobelos.
The Gobelos, who were
on a quest.
On a quest, and they happen to
get sidetracked easily,
as they always do.
Yes.
And they encountered all of what was going on.
Yes.
So you had, everything all linked together to have everyone right there at the beginning.
At the same spot when something's going on. And that's the other thing too. Like, most of that, was just already set up, and then you just need the action, right? Because that's another way that I always like to try and start things whenever you can. If you can have some kind of action happening as the game unfurls, because then there's not a whole lot of time for people to think about stuff, and and I feel like it just creates a little bit more excitement at the table.
It is better for your, it is better to get PCs involved in a story when they are reacting as opposed to acting.
Yeah, yes, and hey, everyone loves combats and explosions. It's my big takeaway from the '80s and the films, and so they're just examples of how we started the story or the campaign in this case, and again that's just with a good hook, a compelling hook to get things going, but but that's only part of a good story, right? So now you need something to pull them through the entirety of the story, and then you need the story to have a completion.
So campaigns that fizzle, are not going to be as full of excitement and retellings. You'll have moments of retellings because they're always going to be cool events. But,
well, sometimes too, it's just like you don't see where it's hard for anyone to see where it's going. And clearly, if the dungeon master doesn't know where it's going, the players are going to really struggle to see where it's going. So,
that I think there's a difference between my game and your game. Is you have a far more open-ended idea of what is happening with your game versus what I see happening with mine.
So, with that being said, the next thing I think we have to address is elements. What are the good elements in a story to help keep it compelling and keep your players going through it and enjoying it?
Okay.
So, one, again, D&D actually does a fairly good job of breaking this down into the elements of combat, exploration, and social interaction.
Right.
And then part of this too is, again, we go to that thing that's subjective, which is good. So you have to look at your table, right?
Absolutely.
I would never say ditch any of those elements, but think of it more like a dimmer switch, and you're going to want to highlight and focus those elements that your players are more into.
Yeah, you always want to find out okay, the group that I have sitting in front of me, what are they more into? If you have players that are far more hack and slashers, then you're going to focus more on the combat and the exploration, and occasionally have some interaction for those that seek it. But if you have characters that are more into the intrigue and the political upheavals, then you want to focus on the exploration and the interaction.
Well, you might want to change how your social interaction happens, right? So if they work combat heavy, maybe you do where it's you try and do more of the social interaction during combats. You have villains that monologue in the beginning. You have villains that talk smack throughout the fight. You create these sequences where even a chase scene where they can't quite get close enough to stop them, but they're still within earshot, so maybe they're taunting them and making them funny. Think about the mine or the minecart sequence from Indiana Jones,
right?
And you could kind of steal from that where you could have it where maybe they are close enough where each side can maybe even take pot shots at each other, but at the same time taunting each other as well.
Right.
That you can see them, but they're just out of view. Maybe the tracks split at some point, and they're even on different tracks, and they're parallel. But you can't quite reach them. Even attacking them with ranged and missile weapons is difficult because they have cover from the card itself. So you can obviously if you're racing through the mines that also has some definite elements of exploration too, but again you're still focused on what the players want, and you're kind of dangling the carrot in front of them because they want to fight and beat up the bad guys, right? So you're dangling the bad guys until they can finally get to them, or if they're overpowered, trying to get away from them,
right?
And that's just some examples from the hack and slash standpoint. But if it's the social interaction, you might go the other way. They might have to fight their ways through the thugs in order to get the meeting,
right?
With the big bad, because they can't get the appointment, so they have to either sneak in or get in by force or whatever.
Even Lord of the Rings, when they're approaching the not the king, whatever. They fight through, and it's just to go up and talk to them.
Yeah.
But so there's lots of interesting things. What other elements do we feel that we need to have for the compelling as opposed to good story?
Yeah, again, it comes down to the same as the hooks. You have to personalize it as much as possible. Anyway, in order to get the buy-in from the players, the more personalization you can put into the story, the more buy-in you're going to get from them. And this is something. It doesn't even have to just be from their characters and their backstory. This can actually be from an ongoing campaign where you're introducing NPCs that the players are getting attached to, they like interacting with, and they keep going back to them for more. And then also eventually these also will become good quest givers for you because, again, they've already got the buy-in. And don't try and present these NPCs for the players and choose them for them. You're better served by putting out a plethora of NPCs and letting the players then choose which ones they're going to gravitate towards.
Right.
Just because one's your favorite doesn't mean it's going to be their favorite.
Absolutely correct.
And then from there, what you're going to need, either whether you're talking about the campaign or you're talking about just an individual story, quest, adventure session, is you need a good closer. It could be several sessions before they get to it, or even better is if you have a closer for each session, regardless of whether they finish the storyline or not. Mm-hmm. It could be a cliffhanger. I like throwing. You don't want to throw them in every time, but you can throw them in kind of often, so that they're thinking about what's happening in the next session and they're planning and they're plotting. Instead of having them fight the dragon at the end of the session, you could have them, approaching the dragon's lair, where everything kind of foreshadows and hints that the dragon's in there, but they don't actually see the dragon yet.
So you have the ability to then say, okay, well, is there something else going on? Are they going to fight the dragon right away? Or are they going to fight it, a little ways in, or not at all next session?
Yeah.
What if they get there and the dragon happens to be elsewhere, but they're in the middle of the dragon's lair, like they've got the treasure? Yeah. What do you do?
Yeah, it's totally Bilbo Baggins time. You're there, the dragon's gone, you don't know what to do. But so you could definitely do that, or or it could be a role playing. Next session can actually throw the players through another loop and be like, oh, we're not actually fighting the dragon, we're talking to the dragon for whatever reason. The dragon has chosen not to fight them and has made them decide not to fight as well. For however you go about that,
right?
Or maybe they think they're talking to the dragon. They hear the dragon talking as they approach the chamber, and it's like a magical recording. And like you said, it's empty. The treasure's there, but the dragon's not there. Which would be weird. And then it creates another mystery. Do they follow that and go, oh, what happened to the dragon, or do they just try and stuff their pockets and head out? What happens next?
Right.
And that could be the conclusion of the adventure, or it could be the jumping off point for the rest of the adventure.
Right.
Yeah, depending on what you have in mind.
So I think that covers quite a bit of information of how to make a game compelling. What do you guys do to make your game good? Put your thoughts and comments down below. While you're at it, like, share, even subscribe.
You can go check out nerdarchy.com.
So until next time, stay nerdy.